Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to Forza Horizon 5. I had a viewer ask me to take a look at this 2012 R35 Nissan GTR Black Edition and see what I can do as far as getting a rear-wheel drive wheelie tune out of it. I'm going to show you what I come up with, or what I came up with, and unfortunately, this car has some limitations. One is that it is not the most powerful engine. You cannot do an engine swap, so you're stuck at 1,000 horsepower total with this car. Secondly, it also does not lose a lot of weight, so you end up with a 3,000, almost 3,000 pound car with barely 1,000 horsepower. So it's not as fun a car as some of the other ones in the game as far as getting a fast drag tune. The other piece is that with the way the suspension is on this car, even with rally, it's really not that high. So weight transfer is a bit of a difficult thing for this car. Yes, it'll lift the front end, but no, it usually won't. You won't easily pop a huge wheelie. And right now with the gear ratios where they are, I'm having a little bit of a struggle getting this car off the ground. Let's do this way. Okay, here we go. Okay. Generally, if you do a reverse to first gear, if the car is ready to do a big wheelie, that's when it'll do it. That's mostly a gearing thing, so if you're not able to get it, you just get the gear a little more aggressive. And as long as it's not spinning, once it hits the point where the gear and the suspension kind of meet in the middle, you get the wheelie effect. Now, that doesn't mean that you get a huge wheelie launching it, but at least now we have basically a gear ratio setup that is aggressive enough without triggering wheel spin. All right, so that was the gearing I'm messing with. I'm making it a little more aggressive to keep trying to see if I can reduce the time here. Now it looks like that 2.32 gave me some of the best times. I'm not going to mess with the rest of it just yet. We're going to leave it be. So this is just a sample gear ratio. I have to emphasize gear ratio is very important for any drag tune, but everybody has kind of a different approach to it. A lot of guys like to put it straight to 2.2 and then work on the individual gears. Sometimes I find that having a more aggressive final drive ratio may or may not have some positive effect on the way the car reacts. So in this case, with this heavy car, low horsepower 1008, I decided to go with a stronger final drive ratio. Alignment, again, some people are big on putting everything to 0. I do watch the numbers. As long as it looks low, I'll do what I need to do. So I play with these mainly to see if there's a drop in numbers. That's after you tune other things, though. Do that kind of last. Same thing with the anti-roll bars. Do that at the end. Okay, spring. Spring's important, okay? Front spring usually is soft for these wheelie tunes. Rear spring tend to be stronger. Now, doesn't mean you always need the rear springs all the way up. Sometimes 300 pounds is enough, sometimes more. It depends on the weight of the car and how much it is squatting. If it has more space to squat, meaning it's got a really high suspension, you can have a lower spring ratio. You don't need it so stiff. But heavier cars tend to need a decent amount of spring ratio, and some of those Lamborghinis and stuff that are mid-engine, you want a nice wheelie out of it. You actually don't want a high spring ratio. It'll be too much. It'll actually make the car lift too high. Spring ratio works together with dampening, right? Rebound pushes the tire back out. Bump stiffness is how little compression the shocks allow. So generally for a lot of wheelie tunes, you definitely want rear rebound high. Now the rear bump prevents squatting. So in some cars you want it to squat, so you actually want this lower. In other cars you generally want to match the rear bump to the front to the rear rebound to kind of give you like a standard setup. An alternative people do a lot is they want the rear to squat more to get the front end up, is they lower this all the way down and they actually increase the front bump stiffness, which theoretically accomplishes the same thing. Now, what you want to do is you want to look at the two numbers. when you're doing this kind of a comparison to see which one theoretically gives you the more aggressive launch. And in this case, it's telling me this is probably going to be better than the other way. So I'm going to stick to this. Differential. The higher this number, the quicker the two wheels lock, but that also makes the car spin more. So if you're spinning a lot, one of the things you can do is lower that so that when you launch, the car grips and it doesn't spin. Now, if your suspension and gear ratio is perfect, it doesn't mean you cannot increase this and get away with it. But let's say we increased it. It does say that the time dropped, but here's the problem is, am I going to be able to actually get it to launch without spinning? If I can, then I will keep it at 100%. Okay, and it did allow me to do it there. So I'm going to keep it at 100% because in theory, that is still a little bit quicker. All right, because this car is so heavy, and because its power isn't that great, you usually don't get like a super nice wheelie out of it. You get like a little bit of a wheelie. I'm gonna show you later a lighter Nissan GTR and how much difference that makes when it comes to popping an easier wheelie. A lot of these big muscle cars that can't drop weight much below 3,000, I find they tend to struggle a little bit with these wheelie tuners. Okay, like this Dodge Charger over here would definitely struggle getting any kind of a wheelie off the ground. Okay, so here we go. Boom. All right. The question is now, what is it going to run? I suspect 190 something mile per hour is probably the best it's going to do. 199. Okay, from the beginning of the festival drag strip. I know that this car is more like a quarter-mile car. We can go to the creative lab to see what it runs in the quarter mile. Based on the numbers I'm seeing, 8.0, 7.8 maybe at best. It's kind of a slow car when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, lightest tire wheels possible. Okay, widest rear tires, drag radials. I mean, it's all the standard upgrades. If you need to see upgrades, I think my first video on how to set up the drag card talks a little bit about upgrades. But this one here, we're just showing you the suspension and the tuning to see what you can get out of performance. Okay, now, anytime you go to anything, the car's tires reset, you're going to have cold tires, right? So your tire temperature is going to be down. You want to heat up your tires before you do anything. So, okay, seems to be gripping pretty good right now. Let's get it lined up. Right. So for this map, you just want to get it in between the lines. And off we go. Alright, so we're going to do a quarter-mile run. 8.0. I think it did like 172 at 8.0. Not the best quarter-mile run. I could probably play with the gear ratio to make that a little better, but essentially, this is what this car is going to be able to do. It's not going to do much better than that. Okay, so that's the 2012 GTR. Now let's compare this to, say, another GTR that is going to have this a engine swap, the inline 6 race engine, and has more horsepower, less weight. You can see a dramatic difference in how that car will perform compared to this car. So let's go ahead and look at another Nissan. We don't have to go crazy. Let's go one generation back. Where's that R34? I know I have one that's set up for drag racing. Here we go. So compare this one. This one is going to be 1,200 something horsepower and 2,600 pounds. Much lighter, 300 pounds lighter, 200 more horsepower, and will do a much nicer wheelie. Okay, see that? Much prettier wheelie, and will be quicker in the quarter mile. So weight is a big thing. That could be one of the big things that are holding you back. If you have a car that, even if it has 1,750 horsepower, but you can't get rid of the weight, it's not going to do that great. And with less weight cars and a little bit higher suspension, it's easier to get a wheelie out of the car too. So if you look at it, the suspension setup, gearing here, pretty aggressive. But notice this time I didn't go for the 4.0. I just left it at 2.2. Springs, only 377 pounds versus that 500 something for the heavier car. 1312, 3.5. I'm not even going for like all the way to 20. You don't need it. 70%. Again, this is just so I can get the best launch that I can feel out of the car. Again, I'm still always tweaking and tuning these to see if I can get a little more out of it. Alright, got the tires heated up. Alright, let's line it up here. Alright. Whoop. I guess the tires were not hot enough. Alright, let's restart. The downside to restarting is, of course, my tires come in cold again. I gotta reheat it. I thought I had the tires heated up pretty good, but apparently not. Alright, you can check your tire temperature right here. Or this one right here, 221 degrees, 17.8 psi. I try to get to like 18 point something. That usually works better. Okay, so now we should be able to get. Let's hopefully it'll grip this time. And let it settle off. As you can see, it is 7.7 quarter mile, 0.3 faster than the other Skyline that is a little bit bigger and slower. 7.7 is not that impressive, quite honestly. I mean, I think this car may have 7.6, 7.5 in it. I'd probably have to retune it a little more. I just kind of slapped it together. And then you have an even lighter Skyline in the and where's that one? Let's see. Let's pull that one out. We'll use that as the last one to show. You have your GTSR, but the 1971 2000 GTR Skyline, same horsepower as the R34, but again a little bit lighter, and it should do hopefully a little bit better in the quarter mile. These are all running the inline 6 3.0 liter inline 6 race engines, which I suspect, based on what I read online, is that's supposed to be the 2JZ, which would be blasphemy since I'm putting it in a Nissan Skyline. But hey, like, I'm not going to think too hard into that. All right. Now this one does, this map does have NOS. I never use it. I'm not testing it for that purpose. Alright, so this is a slightly lighter car. Same level of horsepower, about 1270. Alright. Okay, almost the same RPM launch. And 7.3 versus 7.7, just with the difference between the cars. And that's basically your various Skylines that I've kind of messed with. Obviously the 1971 being the fastest out of the batch. Alright, so that is the discussion on suspension tuning. Again, a lot of it, the lighter cars, less aggressive dampening is needed. The heavier cars, you're probably going to need a little more aggressive. Same thing with the spring rates. Play with the differential to make sure the car doesn't slip too hard. And finally, everything works together. The gear ratio, the spring, the dampening, and the differential. The more aggressive of one, the less aggressive the other. You kind of have to find the balance between all of them to get the car to hook. And if it hooks hard and it has the right suspension and height, it will pop a wheelie and look quite good doing it. Just not in the rain. I'm not tuned for the rainy days. All right, so I hope you liked that video. If you have any questions based on what I was discussing, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. I do want to add one more thing. If you're interested in my tunes, I suggest you to do it like this. Instead of looking for me by share code, I'm not going to bother with them. Go to search and just put in the description search Maxthegamer, do a search, and my car will pop up if I have shared the tune. I'm actually catching up on sharing them. I have tuned, for example, my Chevy Hot Wheels Copo Camaro, which I did a nice tune on. So it's the same thing. I've been slowly updating all my saved, shared tunes by adding that Maxthegamer in there, so you can just do a search for Maxthegamer rather than having to deal with looking for a particular share code to find my stuff. That is just going to be an easier way to do it. So again, I have tunes already shared out there. Let me see. Let's go to the most recent one. Okay, I'm going to save over the Wheelie Drag 6-speed, and I'm going to add in Maxthegamer so that you can have an easier time searching for that particular setup. And that's, again, this is the Copo Camaro one. So all I'm doing is I'm going to add, whoops, can't type today, Gamer, and share it. So now when you search for a Copo tune, all you have to do is go to search, look for Maxthegamer, search, and boom, it pops right up. Okay, all right, so that's it. Feel free to leave comments. If you like the video, leave a like. If you like my channel and like this kind of videos, subscribe, hit the bell, and you get notified when I put out new videos. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.